Right. Okay, good. So it's been a while since IFAO, basically. We um, had this lull in curation meetings, but I want to bring it all together again for weekly, bi-weekly. And uh, let's take it easy with this new one today. I want to hear from those of you who have stake in this. I want to hear what you would like to be focusing on, and happy to devote time, as in sessions, to your interests. So I'm happy, of course, as well to go visit the FoodOn issues board. I just left a couple of other issues on today, items on the agenda to review. And so, first of all, hello and good to see you again. And, let me ask who would like to talk about what they want to focus on. So, Magali, you have your hand.
So, hi everybody. I'm so glad to hear about you again. And so just to mention, as you already know, I would like to work on the mapping between FoodOn and FoodX2 and Transformons. This It's has been a while we have discussing this, but I think we are now ready to perhaps follow up this point.
And not to mention the FoodX2 mapping.
Yes, of course, because my transformer classes are the same, so it is more or less the same, so we can make it together.
Okay, good. I guess, Anusha, I see you're online. You can speak for yourself, but I'll just say I know she's just done 3,500 mappings to USDA SR Legacy and curated. And then we've got at least another 700 or 800, as I understand it. And then that covers all of the single ingredient food. And it may not be, that's the most important. The coverage of SR Legacy many multi-component foods is not so important because the nutritional analysis sort of drops off the cliff. There's a predictability and accuracy on the multi-components. So we are realizing that as well, to do a good job on that mapping, we would actually have to improve and systematize FoodOn's multi-component food.
Yes, of course. I think this could be also the okay. We can take this on because we left it the discussion about multi-components. I would love to have it again.
Okay, good, good. And now I was going to add to your interest list. At any rate, that puts us up into a position where we can talk about mapping to other.
Yes, and you know what? I'm also thinking about the food transformation processes. I mean, the change of state during the process of food.
Okay. State, and you're thinking there of being able to have the lexicon of food characteristics that change.
Yes, the characteristics, and also because we have to speak about the link between food and processes, or and during processing.
Okay.
Aha, that's a big point.
I sent you a little bit of an update that I have later on the Prov workshop. And, okay.
Thank you.
Good. Great. And, so Anyone else? Felix, where are you guys at these days? Having been to IFAO and
Still learning more and more. And I think for us, well, speaking for myself, our priority is in making FoodOn more compatible with our food composition database and LCA database. And I think we'll start with the single component foods, but at some point, the multi-component foods, we also want to map them towards FoodOn as well.
okay.
Felix, maybe you could give us, if you know, kind of an update about what Nevo uses in terms of their vocabulary. Like I know you've been doing some work to map to FoodOn. Do Nevo
Yeah.
terms have their own vocabulary, or are they just kind of their own strings at the moment, like a description label?
They have an English description label, and we also have our own mapping system. So the LCA data is already mapped to the nutritional component database. So that if we annotated or mapped Nevo completely, then it's also easier to map the LCA data. And then the third one is the food safety database. But if there's already a mapping from FoodOn to FoodX, or if that one is being created, then it's fairly easy to map the food safety database as well.
So, okay, so are you saying that like at RIVM, the institute in the Netherlands, you guys have food safety data, which is annotated with something similar to FoodX2, as well as nutritional data that's annotated with something that can be mapped to FoodOn. Is that correct?
That's correct, yes.
Okay, well, I think that's another +1 for the mappings to FoodX2.
I think I think the food safety data is mapped in is coded in FoodX2, and the food composition data is coded in Langwell.
Oh, right.
That seems to make sense because of the history.
Yes.
So that raises a question then, Damien. To the great extent, FoodOn is the successor to Langwell, and that's what it says on the website. However, there is still some issues with the FoodOn Langwell branches where they are not all of the terms are in the main FoodOn hierarchy. So for example, if someone had mapped to one of those Langwell terms that was only off in that other hierarchy, it's not going to then be able to map back to SR FoodX2 at the moment. So that's another thing that we should probably think about in terms of the mapping work.
Yes, of course. And just to mention that it is just the way you are saying it, but it is because of the fact that in Langual and I mean now FoodX2 has evolved as you say from Langual, and but there is already the mapping between Langual and FoodX2 facets. And then I just have to remind that the FoodX2 exposure branch was already included, but not all the whole master hierarchy we have now in FoodX2. So just as you mentioned, Kai, there is some inconsistency between the current version of FoodX2 and the older Langual version.
As well
But
as
it is not
inconsistencies
the
within
big.
how
It is
FoodOn
not a
is.
big issue. It is not a big issue because we have the mapping, but it is still a work to be done. Yes, to have the same.
Just note piece of history there, which is when we brought in Langwell assets, we created FoodOn IDs for just about every term. There may be 10 or 20 terms that we kind of didn't, we dropped to one-to-one mapping on. And they still show up in FoodOn. But sometimes there's a class in FoodOn that has two Langwell IDs associated with it. Um, that aside, the other aspect is that the format that this mapping is in needs to be shifted. So a mini project will be to redo the Langual mapping via an SSOM table. And then we would also be doing all of these other mappings via an SSOM table, just certain syntax for mapping from ontology IDs to other vocabularies. So there'll be some standardization coming that way. So Kai, I am interested in what you found in terms of inconsistencies, because I thought when we did crossover and subsequently we've kept the, for example, the food source hierarchy IDs associated with animals and plants, but maybe we've messed up somewhere there, migrated things off to some other branches.
So what I was referring to specifically was the like agency food product type hierarchies.
Okay.
So that you have, yeah, because I think that some of the Langual mappings only end up there and not in the regular hierarchy.
Yep, that's right. So the agencies, that whole agency branch of FoodOn, we should phase out into like deprecate, because really those agencies are other people's hierarchies. We want the codes, we want that information, but we should really convert all of those into the SSSOM table mappings so that it's clear when you're dealing with FoodOn term versus what we had ad hoc set up just to represent these other hierarchies. And that includes the FoodX2 exposure branch. Okay, so that particular piece is a bit old.
Yes,
old
because
stale.
it's just to be sure to have understood correctly. That was also my the meaning I have in mind when I say that FoodOn as exposure branch of FoodX2. That means that the code, the Langual code, refer only to FoodX2 exposure hierarchy. That's
Yes.
it.
Yes.
Okay.
Understood. We understand that FoodOn only has the 4,000 FoodX2 codes, and that they're actually not mapped over as part to FoodOn. We want instead mapped fullest FoodX2 semantic content as possible. So I'm looking forward to using some ChatGPT large language model stuff to try that mapping as a first round, the first time. The reason I'm saying now we're finally ready to do that is precisely because of all the work that Misha has done to map the SR legacy and foundation. So because we now have a rich enough set of FoodOn codes to cover all of those, now we're in place to do that two words. Okay, I was going to show full screen just in case.
Sorry, Damien, one more thing.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry, someone else. Ido, did you want to say something?
Yeah, I wanted to ask if there is anyone in this group from ANSES. Because ANSES has been granted a contract from the EFSA. It's called a the term doesn't spring to mind. Doesn't come to mind. Anyway, they've been given an assignment from the EFSA to try and develop a large language model based FoodX2 predictor machine, which will predict the FoodX2 classification for a food product. So I guess this might help. But I guess, and as far as I know, this work is supposed to start next year, and then I think it's a 3-year project.
Interesting. Hadn't heard of that.
Yes, I am aware of at least 2 projects, because I am not from the ANSES, but I am from INRAE, and I am in touch with some people from ANSES, but not now directly, but I can try to discuss with them. And I know that there are already a project called Interfood, but it is ANA funded, and I know that Marine told me that they will do the work to map SQL. In France, we have different databases also, and I know there is a work in progress, but perhaps you have mentioned that it is from a founding from EFSA, so I think it is another story, but it is certainly linked to the.
Yeah, there's also another project, another EFSA project, in which national compilers are funded to provide Food X2 classification. But that's another project, and that will need to be delivered next year. So for that, and we're also going to do that, but for that we can't use this new to be developed predictor machine. And I guess this will also be too late for the work that we're now talking about, but maybe we can share ideas with this group.
Okay. And the fundamental issue there is that linear food descriptor language isn't a graph model of the food, and so suffers various problems as a result of that. So that project sounds like it's perpetuating that. And I'm just waiting for the buck to drop, so to speak, that Food X2 and EFSA will see that like a JSON knowledge graph packet on food is the better way to go. So
yeah, I'm afraid that's still a wish, Damien.
Yeah, I know it is. It's up to us to show how beautiful that will be.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, so I can say there are a few other developments on our data harmonizer side that will facilitate kind of a food description tool that's ontology compatible and link ML compatible and all that. So anyway, okay, this is giving us a number of work priorities here.
So the other one I was going to suggest, maybe you've already written it, is just like a few more of, I think it goes with some of the processing and states, but there's just like a number of terms also that we've identified in my FC work, which is dealing with, again, food composition tables, and instead of it being one large code, instead of trying to break it down into something that's easier to process in JSON, but enumerations for things like food preservation straits, dried, cured, canned, etc. So anyway, there's just like all the there's like lots of things that could be done in FoodOn to support that as well, as so just wanted to bring that up again.
You mean that some adjectives to be added to indicate the states of the food regarding the processing of the preservation or the.
Yeah, there's just like lots of examples that we've been identifying in the USDA food tables. Yeah, of like preservation states, temperature, storage states, food cooking methods, those kinds of things.
Right. So Kai actually has the like alpha or beta list of those in the MIFC standard sitting on GitHub, and they're lacking FoodOn IDs. Basically, there's a column even there, just begging for FoodOn IDs. So there's a mini project there to have somebody go through and identify the best FoodOn IDs or create them.
And we have started this work already, but it is also in pause.
In Transformon, that's right. I know we've got this.
I mean, also together, we already have a table we discussed earlier, and we spoke about pasteurization and sterilization and so on.
Yeah. So I guess, all right. So what's arising here is that through each of our agendas, we have different things we want to do, and so there's a possibility that this FoodOn curation meetings into the future will be a framework where each person has a file, their own pet problem of the week or month or year, and they report back on progress made, and it's my job and Risha's job to help facilitate that at our end, and Rhiannon's too. So I should actually have Rhiannon introduce herself if she can, and also talk about things Rhiannon want to do. Are you there?
Yes, because I think that FoodOn could be, just to mention, so I'm Ryan, and just to mention, I think that FoodOn could be a nice hub for this work also, because you can organize things and we can collaborate, because on other, we are doing something on your own, and I'm very interested in. And thank you, Ryan, and sorry for interrupting you.
No worries. Yeah, not in a rush. My name's Rhiannon. I started off in the lab as a FoodOn curator, and then I started doing my PhD in the ontology space in general. So I work a lot on GenAPO, but also still on FoodOn. So my goals for the rest of this year, actually basically for the rest of this month, is I want to tackle any outstanding issues I have that aren't related to my thesis work. And they were kind of discussions I ended up leading in the past, and I've identified 3. And I've listed them here in the document. There's 212, 218, 256. And my plan had been to make a separate OWL file and then present to the group so people can just see it in isolation there. Maybe I'll pull some hierarchical terms to help with the context, but that way we can see if we like these changes before integrating them. Also want to take a pass at the terms that I kind of was co-assigned on the characteristics tab, and just just an initial pass, at least, not planning to get them into perfect form or anything, and still leave them open for the other assignees on pasteurized, ultra pasteurized, and cultured or cured. And then my hope is that I can kind of get these wrapped up in 2024, so that 2025 I can just focus on stuff that's related to my thesis, which right now in FoodOn are the food production streams.
Yeah, great. That's so wonderful to have you back.
Yeah, thanks.
Focus on important things like this milk conundrum.
Right. Yeah.
That's going to take some courage and discussion on the part of FoodOn, because we're running into some areas of language here where corporate consortiums and government agencies have legislative or marketing demands. And we, as trying to offer the vocabulary of the future, are inevitably going to have to take a bit of a political stand in some of our decisions here to ensure that this vocabulary is in the hands of people and researchers, not in the hands of politics. I wish you well and luck.
Well, at least we've already
trying to speak up for you.
At least we already have had some lengthy discussions, and we can say at least we're pulling from a group of experience across the world instead of just label claim needs.
You bet, but as well, I know Magali, for example, you have to answer to industry a bit, so try to
and hopefully we can find ways to address everybody's needs and then interconnect those.
Possibly by some feng shui of ontologies and terms with pseudo this and pseudo that qualifications to what they mean. Okay. All right. Others. I think that's everybody on the call. Anusha?
Yeah, I think mainly I feel like I'm currently working on the fish template and have the OFN file ready for the first pass, but it still needs several improvements. And I definitely appreciate everyone's suggestions to improve that. This is also related to covering USDA mappings, as there are many fish-related terms involved in that. Other than that, I think for the next year, likely early next year, will be to improve the plant hierarchy and its top level terms, particularly like how they should be structured in the template. So yeah, these two things I think will be helpful to get everyone's suggestions on.
Right. So, Anusha, let's plug Amanda Windsor in a little bit here. Amanda, as mentioned, she's moving on to some other obligations, and so we'll look for another FDA representative to show up at the FoodOn Curation meetings. I don't know if you're there, Amanda, but
I am here.
okay. So Anusha, how many fish are in your alpha fish template now?
For the first pass, I've just added like literally some of the species just to test that OFN file. But we are, I mean, in that template in the species list, we have all the 2,000 terms from FDA, which Amanda shared with us. So I'm not sure if we want to pre-compose for how many of them we want to pre-compose the terms. So that is something which we can discuss.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm actually very happy to keep working with the fish because I'm trying to actually work my job more into seafood genomics and still working on the seafood list. I'm taking on a bit of a role updating the IDIS database with seafood FDA important taxa, getting them taxon serial numbers. So I'll still be in it. It's just a lot of where we can't use the Google Docs and all of that makes life a bit harder for us over here.
Okay.
Okay.
And we just did updated some of the sardine names and told Codex. So Codex is voting on changing sardine labeling requirements based on updated taxonomy.
Okay. Well, we always knew there's updates coming from your end to keep up with. So just to say, as we've done and instituted animal parts and cuts, automated now the production of all of those terms. So too.
This is awesome to see.
Yeah, to the seafood parts. And so basically this is a menu of terms that we can bring into play for any particular fish. But by default, we won't offer them. But if we so choose, we can just flick a switch and add these specific parts.
Yeah, that's great because some organs like swim bladders and stuff are actually an individual commodity.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And this explores this whole other world that most Caucasians, I think, well, maybe, or at least most Canadians, Americans aren't that aware of, which is the other uses of for food. Okay, so thank you, Anusha, for that amazing work.
You're welcome.
We'll be running some slightly tricky Sparkle queries to pull stuff out of the current OWL file where all the seafood is, and then stocking a seafood parts times ID mapping table, which is where a lot of the existing content in FoodOn will go. And then we have to figure out how to handle all of the cross-referencing mapping to FDA codes and so on.
Yep.
So more work to slowly transpire there. Okay. So that is the document. Okay, so any other comments about our interest areas, priorities next while? Okay. So I thought I would just do a little brief update on the IFAO July 15th. So there are lots of different takeaways there, but just to say this one paper, What is Food, is a good read to get sort of BFO formal eyes on the use of role, function, and disposition in food. So have a read through that if you have time. It's not too long. And it's just sort of interesting how methodical Adrian Barton and Fumiyaki Toyoshima trying to tackle this what is food and be a springboard off of our FoodOn definition, which managed to survive pretty well. Food material managed to survive pretty well, but and they paid attention to the subclass issues that we were interested in. So this does help give a formal edge to food material, and it also helps explain the underlying classes better to the world. I haven't documented this back into the FoodOn website, so that's actually something I forgot on the list, which is in my plate, which is getting the FoodOn website up to speed with all of our work and changes in the last 4 years.
And Damien, just can you just remind what is the status of this document you showed? It is the IFO presentation, but do you mean there will be a paper or so? Or I don't know.
Yep.
It is the proceeding or?
It's in the proceedings, yeah. So right now it's sitting at the University of Twente as a part of voice proceedings. Okay, so let me pop the link there in.
But do you mean there will be another paper about this subject, or what is the link with the food characteristic paper you have in mind?
Okay, right. So there's no, so I've left a link to this paper right here on the iPad. I think it will stay as a conference paper. I haven't heard that Adrian wanted to move it to a pub journal, but he does have a next paper he wants to have writing with Miyaki on food products, defining that more formally. So we've had some preliminary conversations about that and how it's not so easy to define food product.
Yes, because it is in link with the issue we also have already discussed about this edible, palatable food and so on. And yes, so I would love to link this with the food characteristic paper, because all the it is just it would be better to have the connection between this paper, because we have already discussed this also together.
Yes.
And, just the issue is 209.5. I don't know what yes, how you want to bring this in the food characteristic paper.
Well,
because I hoped to have the sensory part. We already discussed about the sensory characteristic, but
yes,
this I was waiting for you in fact, because we have to make some choices about this paper to link also with the other one you proposed, a world system view on food. You proposed to split this in two parts, in two papers. So I don't know where we are now.
There was the possibility of that if this was getting too big. one can always split these papers into different chunks. And if they're too big, I don't know if it's too big. Okay, so all right, so we jumped into the food characteristics paper piece. Let me just say that just as for what is food, Adrian and Fumiaki are just interested in the high level DFO characteristics of dispositions and so on. So it's great work that they do, but and I'm happy that they're going to contribute to a food product idea. I suspect what they will come to is that a food product is simply food material that has had some further intentional processing done to it. So I would rather just leave it at that and let them progress and lead their sense of what a food product might be and the discovery of that. And we'll liaise with them, I'll liaise with them and see if that ends up coinciding with our rough picture of what a food product is, and know that a short paper will come out of that from the BFO perspective. This food characteristics paper is where my heart lays as the next piece, and it's just it's big. So I guess the first question for those of you who are interested in being authors is, are you comfortable with that? Because we could end up with a 40-page document that kind of tries to take the lay of the land ontologically, as well as pushing for some changes in FoodOn. I'm happy with that. And I was frankly going to make this, once it's a finished draft, into the content of the FoodOn website. Basically, every single piece here is a piece that I would want to put in a better presentation for the public and for researchers on the FoodOn website. That was my ambition, but the others need to tell me about their ambitions in participating with this project, and knowing that there's so much more work to do on these different modalities and what to say about them, or to get the ontologies that run through the terms that you need in describing this stuff. And maybe it's just too vague in some areas, so we just have to offer kind of general guideline. There's a page up here. General guideline that this is where the ontology is. Where's the just a sec, don't want to make you dizzy here. Just the general diagram under which we would expect food characteristics to fall, but with discussion of whether separate ontologies are needed for some of these vast descriptive areas, such as flavor. Especially flavor, but other odor and texture.
Yes, but that's just the generic terms, and then we discuss, and perhaps Kai also have some idea. I don't know if you're already, yes, because it's about the characteristics you mentioned, I think, in your USDA list, about the specific states of food. Perhaps you can say a word, Kai?
Yeah, there's just a few ripeness state things that I found so far. Like, a lot of food composition tables want to have that information, but only have a little bit of it. So it's not like there's a lot to offer there. There's just a few of those ripeness states that I found in the tables.
Okay, but I have, on my side, I have a huge list of descriptors for sensory characteristics, but they are they are much more detailed than just odor or texture. There are some descriptors linked to this dimension of sensory properties. I don't know if it is worth to
So
mention this in the paper or not. I don't know, because I think, Damien, you want to make a gap analysis once again in this paper to mention
right.
what is in or not. Okay.
Exactly. It would be great if you have identified. This is where I'm really relying on food scientists and people like yourself. I don't know.
So yes, but just the question was also, I think it is Robert for mouthfeel, and I don't know if I have to get in touch with him, or how do you want us to?
Anybody's encouraged to communicate with any author directly. So if you wanted to talk to Robert about the
mouthfeel,
the mouthfeel, you're welcome to. People did put their names down, but I expect interest in time changes of, you know, what you can actually get accomplished changes depending on the season. And
yes,
I know Robert's really busy, so always inquire. But if you can't move ahead, then take on something if you have the time, or we ask for other volunteers.
Because it will be more specific on beverage, right?
Yeah. Yep.
Okay.
Yep. So obviously we can't be the encyclopedia here. We're not the Rousseau. We have to cut the line somewhere, but enough information to get people to the vocabulary, even if it isn't in ontological format, and then the ask that it become one, and some discussion around who is best suited to
Yes,
curate.
that's also my question about the vocabulary list, because my descriptors are more a list of words.
Yes, right.
You mentioned the fact that it is not necessarily an ontological word, but more or less.
Yeah, I want to recognize that we're in a transitional period here. Getting these vocabularies into ontology format is the ideal. Luckily, you know, maybe what we need to do up front is discuss a little bit more the LinkML ability to handle lists of things, get these lists into the LinkML data specification format, and then look at migrating them, and a discussion of whether you want them in Transform On, or whether they should go in FoodOn, or whether we should try to get them in Pato in a big, massive pull request.
Yes, because I think in this case, Pato will be more appropriate than FoodOn.
It is, yeah, you're right. You're totally right.
Okay.
And it just means that each term needs a definition, and that we won't run into much fuss, that the definitions are clear, or that there are things you can't quite define, like a particular taste just ends up invoking a bunch of other poetic words to try to get at it. So I can inquire. Let's call that a mini project to inquire with Pato.
So you mean we can organize the work, and then we can contact the Pato work people?
Right. Okay. Yeah. Now, Pato actually doesn't have much staff. As I learned, what they're friendly to is a pull request with the terms, and that's the way they can just say okay and then get it in. So you have to just be mindful of the style that Pato seems to be looking.
Damien, I think I can review on Pato. I think I have access to that. Okay. So if we prepare that, then I'd be happy to like +1 it on the Pato team. Not that I'm really on the Pato team, but I think I can do that.
Right. Okay. Great. So I'll just mention Magali. So another little mini project.
I think the thing to do though would just be to like prepare a big pull request and just like make all of it at once and then submit something big to Pato.
Yeah, I agree. projects. Okay, and that opens up maybe Kai, on an upcoming FoodOn Curation meeting, you could just give us a quick MIFC GitHub intro to where the terms are sitting so far.
No, I'd love to do that. Yeah, like I said, it's not the official USDA product, but it's the prototype that I'm working on, and it is open to feedback from people who just want to look at it. So I would love to do that.
Okay. Show lists, process, presentation, etc. And so actually that's a question for you. I presume MIFC doesn't have these sensory terms in it, and probably doesn't really have an interest. Like a food composition person isn't going to ask about the smell or the texture of a food in front of them.
I mean, I think that it's something that in the future they perhaps should be doing, but in terms of what exists, there's very little, or if nothing, already to that effect. No.
I'll just say sensory terms possible. But at any rate, what it will give you, Magali, is a sense of how we could package all of these lists of terms into a LinkML specification that we could then adorn with ontology IDs as they come up, as they are curated. Might be a good way of organizing all the work on these.
Like MixS or the MyFC is like a use case for this because it's, with food composition data tables specifically. It's like a spec for that kind of information. But there might be a lot of other types of information that, the food sensory things, come out of. But at least looking at that one would be an example of how LinkML would function and how you can think about these things moving forward. Yeah.
I think I just need a little help to to proceed, and so I can take this in charge, but with your help, perhaps, to organize the work, and then I can perhaps suggest my terms as a contribution.
Yeah, no, I mean, MyFC would be happy to have it. It's just that may or may not be I'm happy to have you put it in MyFC. Just know that the specific application for that is food composition databases.
Yes, of course.
Yeah.
Okay. And this reminds me, Jenny Gallas Brinkley had to join late this morning. So Jenny and Sarah, we were just going around to find out who wants to do what's their focus, and what do they want out of FoodOn in the next year. If you guys have any comments about what you want out of FoodOn, your little mini projects, I think the vision was emerging that we each would have a file of our interests and that we'd have a chance to bring them and also report on progress. And it's my job and Anisha's job to help you become independent curators of FoodOn, such that you can actually do this work yourself. So over to you, Jenny and Sarah, if you have anything to say about your.
Hey, Damien. Hey, everybody. Yeah, we really would like to start helping with all this curation process, but actually I have to say that I'm kind of lost with all these different projects that you already have running. So maybe if you can help us to identify some place where we can start working on, that would be great. And also because I can start understanding more how it works and we can start helping.
So I've made a video, which hopefully will bring a lot more clarity and simplicity to all these projects you're seeing on the list there. The video this sessions. Okay, great, thank you, wonderful.
Yeah, and I'd say I'm still interested in that food characteristics paper as well. If you want to throw that down under the PTFI activities.
Okay. Okay. So my feeling is we should just progress making the food characteristics paper bigger and bigger with all this section, Then we'll make a decision about whether it needs to be chopped up in big parts.
Yeah, I agree. I think that makes sense. Then you have this whole like cohesiveness to it, and even if you do break it up into parts, there will be a kind of flow and uniformity, even if it's like chapters of papers. And then you can have FoodOn be that master reference that even as you like as one part maybe is ready and polished, we could even put that one out or not. Maybe it ends up as one big thing, depending on even the journal that's targeted. But yeah, I think just keep going as it is right now keeps it all together and makes sense.
Okay. And though my duties are pretty loaded now between 3 different projects, I will put my FoodOn contribution to this there. Should be pretty easy to actually support MIFC through the work that's done on food characteristics, and the MIFC needs can be sort of priorities to fill in content.
Yeah, I was going to say Jenny and Sarah. Sarah, nice to see you again. Welcome back.
Thanks.
Yeah, I'd love to continue discussing with you guys because like the MyFC is a really obvious use case for PTFI to help be more interoperable with USDA. So we should be talking about that.
Definitely.
And it's great that you guys have been continuing to work with FoodOn and mapping your terminology to FoodOn, which actually makes it possible in the future, hopefully, for USDA to make it interoperable with our data using FoodOn. So that's still the plan, that's still the goal. Some of the details, though, hopefully will come in through MyFC, and that's something maybe the 3 of us can talk about continuing about getting your data formatted that way, even if it doesn't support your OMIC data at the moment, even if it's just for analytical data.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
This is sustainable food hierarchy, right? Yeah. I should update, or is it updated? I've assigned IDs, by the way, to all of these, or most of these food classes. And I'm just checking in with Sanders about updates to his work, see where he's gotten. Let me check the date on that. So, yeah, okay. So,
Hey, Damien, I see we've got like 5 minutes. We did have like a very applied question about kind of the direction of like post-compose terms with PTFI foods. And sorry I missed the call with you and Anusha and Jenny, but I was wondering if we could kind of get to the bottom of what will we do kind of going forward if we did have a cooked food. Is it kind of like the placeholder of like the none option for if we had a cooked food, and then we would post-compose additional food characteristics, or do we default to raw and then add those food characteristics?
right, so, okay. I'll do a quick response on that, but that's probably merits diving into on the next curation call.
Cool.
So quick response is talk about a food material, taxonomy, and then cut. You've isolated in, but you haven't isolated even whether it's raw or so. Up to your database choice to decide. Yes, we're gonna model all of this as the raw foods, and then something was done to them. Or you can model it as the unknown state of cooking, and then something was done. So it's your choice whether you want to actually have it raw.
Okay.
That
Cool.
raw part is the way respect to nutritional analysis, because the next thing that's done is it's cooked, so it's actually the nutritional analysis.
Yeah, I think kind of like I've explained to you a little bit before that we do sort of like a specimen sample hierarchy, and samples are derivative from specimens. And so in that case, we kind of like already have specimen usually as raw. And so maybe we want to have our sample as the unknown, just indicating something different is going on there. And then, maybe look to additional characteristics to find out what that magic is.
So maybe one solution to the clarity is to say, this is the description at the point of collection, sample collection. That's usually off, but maybe a little more together for stuff or something.
Yeah, not always.
And normally you would want to add what was done to that. Okay, but let's food for more conversation. Let me just finish up on a couple of notes. So the COB workshop was very interesting, and it's the big focus in that workshop was kinds of material processing and equivalent material processing devices as a general hierarchy to add to COB, which will now be the new ontology under which all the foundry ontologies are organized as people do their slow conversion recommended ontology. And so COB includes commonly used terms across the foundry, and we are crafting this list of processes under the material processing side. And then ontologies like OB or possibly COB will also have the parallel device categories. And then underneath all of those, all of the food processing equipment pieces, all of the food processing steps will find a home if we do the job well. So that's the news I wanted to report from the COB workshop. And we've been given the okay to work on and massage that hierarchy, and the material processing fundamental terms paper that Magalese and others have contributed to is where this work will happen, and it will be a paper of itself. So you can see I'm borrowing stuff from the food characteristics paper already to show that processes change things. Magali, to your point, change characteristics of materials. Okay, so that's the news there. And the last thing is there's an EU Synergy grant I'm writing right this moment with Andrea Berghini and Giancarlo, and a number of other ontology philosophy types, and around food systems and food ontologies, and a cross-domain, cross-platform effort to be able to convert them. It's in the big 5-year, multi-million-dollar grant. So some of that content it's helping sharpen my mind about how to market FoodOn and make it compatible with these other upper level ontologies, not just BFO, but UFO, Dolce, and so on. That's the big accomplishment here in our case that would be delivered. Okay, with that said, it's 9:02. We're over. Thank you. Anybody that want last comments? Otherwise, we meet in 2 weeks. Yeah. Okay. Great. Good to see you all again. Wow.
Thanks. Bye.
Thanks,
Right.
Damien.